In this collection of videos, we're going to be introducing the concept of modules in Python, a really nice way to bring in extra functionality to the programs we'll be writing. So the first question I'd like to address is, why do we have to bother with importing modules in the first place? Why does Python do this? Now, as we've seen, the core Python programming language has only 33 reserved words, and there's a lot that we can build with those 33 reserved words, but sometimes it can take a lot of programming to build elementary and useful tasks from just those 33 reserved words. One of the reasons that Python limits itself to just those 33 reserved words is to try to give as much speed and memory and naming potential as possible to the user of the programming language. If there's only 33 words that you can't use that are hands-off, you have a lot of naming choices. And if we're only importing a handful of words, we're not going to bog down your computer with all sorts of things. However, Python is a very popular programming language that many people have used to do things in biology, geospatial science, neuroscience, video gaming, data science, audiology. And so all of those different fields use Python and have lots of specialized tools and subprograms that they use in their applications. But if I'm a data scientist, I maybe don't have a lot of use for the things that the geospatial scientists are using or the video gamers, and so I don't want my program to run slower just because it's carrying around information on how to use the things for the audiologists or the biologists or the video gamers. I only want the basics there and maybe the stuff for data science. And so the way that Python handles this is by having all of the information that it needs in a vast library. And instead of bringing the whole library along with Python, it just knows where the library is. And if we know how to communicate with Python that we want it to go to the library, it's a computer, it's very fast, it'll run to the library and grab the package that you need and bring it back, and then it will just install that localized set of tools. So that's the reason that Python has these modules, and we have to load them in at the beginning of our program. What is a module? It's a whole collection of new Python commands, most typically functions, but not always, and they're related by a common theme, so that hopefully when you go through the effort of bringing in a module, you're bringing in all the tools that you need, or at least a lot of tools that are relevant to you. So some things that you might want to bring in are something like the math module. If you're doing a program for some sort of mathematical application, maybe you want access to things like sine, cosine, tangent, square roots, absolute values, etc. All of those things are not built into Python, but if we tell Python to go access the math module, it will bring back all of these mathematical functions with it. There's something in Python that people use a lot called the datetime module, and this is a module that people built for keeping track of dates and times, and one of the best things that it does is it can efficiently compute the differences between times, which is something we as humans do a lot, but is a totally non-trivial programming task. Think about leap years and all of the complications with weeks and months rolling over. That can get really difficult, and the datetime module can handle all of that arithmetic for us. There's also something called the random module that we'll be using a lot for picking random numbers or shuffling lists, and this gets used a lot when you're talking about maybe AI. You want to create a program that plays tic-tac-toe. You want the user to play it, but you want it to have a theoretical opponent that the computer is simulating, and you might want that simulated person to make choices at random, as opposed to according to a strategy, and we can gain access to picking random numbers through the random module. There are many, many, many more Python modules that we'll discuss later, but these are some of the most elementary and popular. Okay, so we're sold on why we need modules. Let's next discuss how we use them. What we need to remember is that the functions and the words and the commands that we'll be gaining through a Python module, they are not reserved words. If we do not tell Python to first go get the module, where to go to retrieve it, And then we just try to use these functions that we know Python theoretically knows exists. It's going to generate an error. So I've shown an example right here. One of the things we can load in from the math module is the value of pi, so we don't have to program that in or type it out whenever we want that. However, if I just ask Python to print me math's pi value, it's going to generate an error. And you can see from this red error here that the error is name math is not defined. So Python understood the word print, and then the squiggles started at the word math. It doesn't even know that math is one of its own modules. And so it's saying to me, I don't know what the word math means. So what we need to do in order to load the math module into our Python program is at the very top of our text editor, the first lines of code that we enter, we need to use the reserve word import followed by the name of the module. That's the first command we must give to the program so that it knows to go to the library, grab the math module, and bring it back with all of its functions in tow. If we then do the same command, print math.py, now math is a word that our program knows. It knows that math is the name of the library. And what this is doing right here, the syntax of which we'll talk about more later, is it's going to the math library and accessing the value of pi.